And we're back. So we're going to cover the options we weren't able to cover in our last session. So we're going to create a new artboard. And if you don't know how to create a new artboard, be sure to check out the tutorial on artboard creation and manipulation. It's simple. So create an artboard, and then let's create an area type. And let's start typing words that don't matter much are just words that we use regularly. Let's take that off. And we will say often this is the case. Just type anything. You can go to the Lipsum word generator if you need to. And we just want to type where whatever words we have, we can get them to hyphenate and or break on our lines. Now, let's say we don't want this break to be here. We could select this word, go to our option, and select no break. And it would break wherever our selection ended at. So let's say we selected here, clicked it, and went no break, and now our break is here. So that's what the no break option does. And these options are on the right hand side of your character window, upper right. Now we can change it from standard. Let's escape out of this so you can see it. Standard vertical Roman alignment. And we could take that off or turn it back on. And it's going to govern our vertical alignment according to Roman units. Or we can choose the show touch type tool and it will take it out of our character window. We could turn it back on. And again, that's only in Illustrator CC. And then we already know from our previous lesson what all caps, small caps, superscript, and subscript are. Fractional widths and system layout is just governing the width measurement in accordance to the words that are in the actual paragraphs. Our other options are, which we just covered, the no break, and then reset panel, which will reset everything back to default. So you'll notice now our size, our font type, everything is reset back to its default setting. So that's what happens when you click the reset panel. Now that pretty much covers the type and the character options. The next thing we're going to discuss are going to be our paragraph options, and we're actually going to include that in this lesson just because they're brief. And let's actually go back to what we originally wrote. And I'm actually going to get words from the Lipsum generator. And I'm going to paste these words in here. Now, let's change the size so we can get some hyphenation in there. Alright. You'll notice we have hyphenations at the end, or hyphens at the end of each line where a word is broken up. Okay? And in order to choose whether or not we want to use hyphens, we can, once we open our paragraph window, which is window, type, and paragraph, we can click the bottom box, and which automatically hyphenates it, or we can unclick it and it'll take the hyphenation off. So with and without hyphenation. So you have that option. Just know that without it, it's just going to be a longer paragraph because you'll have more inconsistent breaks from your lines. Alright? But your words will stay together. Now, if you are doing something and you want the breaks to be more consistent, but you don't want the hyphens, you uncheck hyphenate, And then you would select a justification type for your paragraph. All right. And there's justify all lines, justify the last line aligned right, justify with it aligned center, and justify with the last line aligned left. Typically, the full justification is with left if you're looking for it normally. We click that, and you'll notice now the breaks are even on the left and right hand side, except for the last line, of course, is shorter because you're not going to spread that out against the whole bottom row. But if you were to click justify all lines, now it spreads the last word all the way across. So that's if you want it to be a complete block from start to finish. It makes sure that it calculates the number of letters, their sizes, and the width of the bounding box so that everything fits perfectly within that box. It's a perfect square or rectangle. And you can choose other justification options. Again, we had justify left, where the last line is actually justified to the left, but we can select for it to be justified in the center or to the right. In addition to this, we also have ragged lines. Ragged lines are when we don't automatically justify the size of the lines so that they end evenly. And we have our normal options, which are align left, then we have align center, and align right. So these are your character options. They're all at the top of the window. Then, underneath, you'll notice there are some options. There's a left indent option where if we were to click this after selecting either the entire paragraph, or let's say we go back and we only select a portion, it will indent accordingly. If you look, we have an option to left indent, and this will actually indent the entire paragraph. And you can govern this by looking at the icon, which is on the left hand side. Now, we also have an option to indent from the right. And depending upon how you have your justification, it may look a little different. Because this is ragged, it looks as if everything is jumping around. But if we were to switch it, you'll notice that the indent is even from the right side. And then we have the option of just indenting the first line, which, as you can see, indents this very first line. There's also options to place a space before a paragraph. Let's make something where there are multiple paragraphs. Let's make something where there are multiple paragraphs. So we're going to increase the size of this, select it all, copy it, and we're going to make another one. And you'll notice there's a huge space before this next paragraph, whereas it's different than, let's say, another line. So if we were to select this whole thing and change this number, you'll notice it's only affecting the areas where there is a new paragraph. And the same thing is for the space after a paragraph. So you'll notice that the space here will be governed there as well. So we can select it to change that space prior to or after an actual paragraph. So those are your text options when it comes to your paragraphs. Everything is still in an option panel where you can change your Roman hanging punctuation. You can change it to hyphenation, and you can select your options for hyphenation. Let's actually turn hyphenation on, and then you can change in your options window, which is to the upper right, similar to how it was in the character panel, and you select hyphenation, you can change for words longer than 6 letters, let's say words longer than 4. And then we want to do it after the first 2 letters and before the last 2. Let's say we want to limit the number of hyphens to 3. And then we can do the hyphenation zone, which it chooses whether we're going to lean towards better spacing or fewer hyphens with regards to our entire paragraph. And then whether or not we hyphenate capitalized words. Okay? And then we can click preview and we can see the difference between what it's doing. So you'll notice now there are actually more hyphenated words because we've made it so that the words that are longer than 4 are actually being considered as opposed to where it was 6. And you'll notice the more you place in terms of words longer than, or the higher that number, the less hyphens you're going to get. But the lower that number, and you'll notice the more hyphenations you actually get. So these are your paragraph options. And then there's one last thing you should familiarize yourself with, and that's glyphs. So you're going to go to Window, and you're going to go down to Type, and you're going to go to Glyphs. And when you open this, a glyph window will open up. And essentially, glyphs are alternate characters that aren't just within your regular character set, or you won't be able to get by just pressing a key on your keyboard. And you may want or may need to actually bring one of these characters out onto the board. And this allows you to search through it, and you can search through the entire font, the alternates for a selection you may have. Like if you have a set of characters that are selected and there are alternates for that, it will bring those up only. And then you can change the actual font type and the styling, and then you can look for it there. And if you were to double click this specific icon, it would come out onto the board so that you could use it. So let's create type here, and we were to double type or double click on one of our glyphs. Now we have it on the board. We just double clicked and brought the copyright symbol onto the board. Let's say we want it to be regular. We can then double click again, and now we have a regular version. We can change, let's say we want courier. And now we have the courier version of the copyright signal. So these are your options with using glyphs. Glyphs are awesome, and you need to know that they're there because a lot of people aren't aware of it, and they go searching for images of these symbols and or letter forms that they don't actually need, and they can use it directly from the glyph window. So those are your options for your character, paragraph, and type tool options. So be sure to check out all of the previous videos. Make sure you are familiar with them, and I guess come back and just go over them. Make sure everything is on the up and up and where you need it to be. Alright, so keep a lookout for whatever our next lessons are going to be. We're going to start doing some tutorials where we are showing you how to put these into practical use, but the next tutorial should be the actual symbol sprayer tool, and then maybe the eyedropper tool after that, and possibly perspective grid, but we'll see. So you guys stay tuned, and I will see you in our next lesson.